There are a few other things the robot couldn't do.
Eat cheese. It really gums up their systems. Terrible. Although, because it gets quite hot inside, it does drip out in a nice gooey mass that is excellent on toast. But it's not really worth the cost of yet another robot. Might be better to just do it in an oven or something crazy like that. Although, needs must. Sorry, I think I got distracted from the point of the video. This is part 2 of Try Denying God's Existence After This. We started this series with the world's richest average man, and now we are talking about robots. Oh, Ray and Kirk, you never cease to amuse with your journeys into creationist madness. Do go on.
They couldn't run or even walk as humans do because...
Yes they can. They can walk and run in general, and sure, I know that this series started in 2003, so they might not have been as good at it as they are now when this particular episode aired, but I'm pretty sure they could still do it. And let's be fair, humans have been actually trying to make near-humanoid robots for what? A few decades, at least in earnest. And in that frankly tiny timescale, using their pathetic human minds and limbs, they've done a pretty good job so far, and continue to make better and better ones all the time. So the idea that even when this video was published that robots aren't gonna, or in fact couldn't, get as good, if not way better than their squishy masters, is patently absurd.
The scientists found human feet far too complex and designed to imitate.
Wait, what? Who cares about human feet? And is this just your shifting the goalposts? Oh, scientists haven't created perfect human's feet, therefore God. Like, why would they even do that? Human feet aren't some bastion of perfection, they're pretty flawed. For starters, if the Who boys were designed by Mr. Gad, then why the f*** do they still have toes? Toes that clearly have more dexterity than they need, almost like they used to be more hand-like, and then became less and less so as they stopped climbing trees and instead used them as leg wedges. And you might say, well, maybe being like that makes them better at running. Well, then why do the world's best runners all wear shoes? And why don't they have some sort of individual toe sections, almost like humans basically invented a better foot? Weird. Oh my god, that was the most awkward segue I think I've ever seen. Where do you think they're going? Probably to do something really, really stupid. Or maybe to hang around that average dude's house again, talking shit about him. You know what they're like, always sneaking / doing the dumb. I call it dumbkin.
The human ankle serves as foundation, shock absorber, and propulsion engine.
The ankle is the propulsion, and not like the entirety of the leg. Just the ankle. I don't know about you, but when I purely move my ankle, all that happens is I fall to the ground. But then again, that's what happens whenever I do most things, because I am often drunk.
The foot can sustain enormous pressure, several tons over the course of a 1-mile run.
Is that a fat joke? Look, just because I eat nothing but sweeties, pastries and pie doesn't mean I weigh several tons. I weigh 1 ton at most. Goddamn voiceover guy calling me out here. Piece of crap. Now I need to go eat some pies to calm my nerves.
And provides flexibility and resiliency.
Jesus Christ, this bit is just way over dramatic. Like seriously, I think feet are fine. They do the job, but do you really have to make it sound like it's a f***ing super sophisticated spy gadget? If it doesn't turn out that it has hidden rocket boosters and a fold-out minigun, I am going to be extremely disappointed.
The foot and ankle contain 26 bones, 33 joints, more than 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments.
And not one bottle of whiskey. I mean, seriously, what's the point? Why should I walk anywhere when I could have an extremely convenient foot whiskey to hand? But no, that would just be too useful, too convenient. And you know what? If it did have that, I would even start to believe that these claims that there is a God chap hanging about, maybe they got something. Because that's the kind of thing that would prove some kind of benevolent super being. But no foot whiskey, no God. End of story. Theism debunked.
And a network of blood vessels, nerves, skin, and soft tissue. These components work together
to make for a delicious snack food. Footson's brand feet, all you need to live a healthy lifestyle. Brand new teriyaki flavor for a Japanese twist on a foot favorite. Fan favorite. Look, just buy the feet, please. I got all of these from a Heaven warehouse, and I have no f***ing idea what I'm supposed to do with 10,000 feet. That pink-haired lady scammed the shit out of me.
to provide the body with support, balance, and mobility.
Therefore God, right? Like, seriously, what has this thing am very complicated got to do with anything? One would think that Mr. G to the O to the D might have designed them in a more efficient way, but no, apparently over-engineering to the point of complete redundancy is just his kind of bag. And again, not one spy gadget. Is it too much to ask for a grappling hook or a parachute to come out of my feet? Pfft, useless. Oh god, did we just stumble across Ray and Kirk's foot fetish crossed with whistling porn? Look, I got nothing against people who are into feet. More power to you. But mix it in with whistling and now you're just officially a bit weird, and I'm going to give you the sly eye from across the hallway and pray to atheismo that you don't try to engage me in idle conversation, 'cause I know what you're thinking about, really, you whistly freak. Oh right, we are in fact back to Joe Average, the world's least average man, who lives in a house that by right should be called a goddamn mansion. It really does just go to show how completely beyond the brush of reality Ray and Kirk are. If they think this is what an average person lives like, and let's be fair, if they actually used an average person in an attempt to say that God does the real, you would have to be like, here's Joe Average. He hates his job, his wife hates him, and his kids are completely indifferent to his struggles to feed and clothe them. Let's look at the filthy hovel he calls home, surrounded by heat, trash, and burned out cars. Doesn't this all just make you think how, lucky he is that God, shit. This really is not helping our case, is it?
However, Joe had no problem standing upright and walking.
He says as Joe nearly falls flat on his face. Oh man, good job, editor. We know that you are secretly on our side.
Because his extraordinary feet were designed and created by God.
Extraordinary? So his feet are nothing like another person's? Or do you mean extraordinary because his feet are just like everyone else's to an almost confusing degree? That is to say, not really all that good, and in no way proof for God, but as a weird amalgam of various features, they are an excellent demonstration of how evolution makes things change so they can be adapted for new uses, while still very obviously having a previous purpose.
The run-of-the-mill piece of toast that he made wasn't ordinary either.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Please tell me that they are going to make toast the atheist nightmare type of argument, because that's just so much fun to argue against, and proves very quickly just how f***ing ignorant these two are to evolution and science in general.
It came from bread, and the bread came from wheat, which came from the soil.
No it didn't. It came from seeds, which came from other wheat, and so on and so forth. In fact, Mr. Creationist, because of that cycle, and humans picking the best and not using the worst, the wheat, like all human-farmed food, are only the way they are today because of evolution via artificial selection, much like a certain fruit that shall go nameless. Eh, Ray? Interesting that you skip over that now, even though God totally invented everything exactly the way it is today, right?
God created the soil, and the soil contained nutrients that fed the wheat seed.
Nope, that's not how it works, because soil doesn't have infinite nutrients, so God putting it there doesn't happen. And it gets nutrients through either natural processes or, much more likely in the case of bread, man-made means, meaning that the humans put it there. So yeah, basically a half the atheist nightmare argument this time, demonstrating you don't know how the farming works. How do you two get anything done when you obviously spend so much time falling down and hitting your heads really hard?
and that formed itself into the wheat plant, which then produced more wheat seeds. When the seeds were harvested, they were ground into flour and mixed with yeast and water to make bread.
And which part of that did God do? Oh right, none of it. Again, not even the soil bit, so how is this in any way, shape or form proof for God that's gonna make it impossible for me not to say, God am the real, me am doing such a convinced, here have all my money and firstborn children's. I'm just not seeing it, guys. Sorry, maybe I need to want to believe harder, but I just don't care.
So that Joe would have something to eat to satisfy his God-given appetite, so that he'd have energy for that day.
And damn, our Joe here, he was the first in line for that appetite, yeah? And I ain't just talking about food, although he is a big boy, but he's got an appetite for the finer things, an appetite for nice homes and good locations, and somehow can afford them, whilst being average. It's like you two live in such a world of luxury and decadence, and so think that the average man must live like this, because we have our palaces and over-the-top mega-churches. So Mr. Average, well, he's just below that in his tiny little pokey mansions.
And the butter that Joe spread on his toast came from milk that came from a cow that chewed grass that came from the soil nutrients that God created.
Oh, you're doing it again. That cow, do you think that's what cows look like when the Who-Mans first encountered them? More muscles than makes sense, able to produce great quantities of milk than her calves could ever hope to consume? And how exactly such a creature plopped down before humans were capable of protecting them from local predators without going extinct basically right away? Seems pretty unlikely. And again, God didn't do the nutrients, people did, you dense fuck.
The honey came from an insect that God created to collect nectar from flowers that grew from the soil that he had made.
There's only so many times one man can before his bottom jaw drops off. And I am not willing to test that limit today. Just know I am so ready to groan myself silly. God didn't make the bees, and if you want to claim that he did, you've got to provide evidence for that. You can't, because it's nonsensical. But that's your problem, not mine. And on top of that, how do they get the honey from the insects? Do they just come along and drop it on your doorstep? Or is that yet another thing that uses human inventions to get way more of it than God was apparently willing to provide? Almost like it was never intended for people and merely a product of the creatures that was made for the creatures that made it. And that's not a judgment on industrialization or whatever, just that it's weird how little God seems to actually do to help in its acquisition. Almost like he doesn't reel.
The composition of honey consists of varying proportions of fructose, glucose, water, oil, and special enzymes produced by bees.
And then it's added to whiskey to make more honey bourbon, right? And it has no other purpose because what else is there but changing the flavour of whiskey? I can't think of any other reason one might get it, but then again, I have a drinking problem. There's not enough drink in my face, so I'll drink honey bourbon, even though I don't actually like it.
With their tongues, they suck out the nectar and store it in sacs within their bodies.
Now he's going on about tongues and sacs. Oh, we're just back to perversions again, aren't we? We all know what he's really talking about, and I, for one, am disgusted that there hasn't been more sack-tonguing in these videos. It's downright shameful.
After filling their sacs with these juices, they then fly back to their beehive and regurgitate the stored nectar into the mouths of house bees.
I love the way that he is describing what bees do, and again his conclusion is going to be, therefore God. But it just doesn't do anything for me. Describing natural processes or the actions of creatures, all that proves to me is that those things happen. As soon as you throw in, God made that happen because isn't it cool? And you just completely lose me. And like I said, I'm kind of fat and thus very difficult to lose.
These bees are assigned the job of adding enzymes from their bodies to the nectar. The enzymes cause chemical reactions that ripen the nectar and evaporate its water.
Ah, listen to Ray reading some science shit off a sheet of paper. So you can do it properly when you think it supports your claims, but as soon as it makes your God blatantly redundant, suddenly you stop being able to brain the science and you start spouting unprovable, untestable gibberish like creationism. Strange that, eh?
Lastly, the nectar is stored in a cell of a honeycomb. Over time, the nectar ripens and becomes honey.
For the love of all that is whiskey, Joe, at least spread it on. What is this squirting crap? You only do that if you're going to be squishing it into some kind of honey sandwich. Like seriously, why exactly did God invent knives, as he so obviously must have, if you aren't going to use them, you ungrateful bloody swine?
The reason he drank the milk was because God had created him with a reoccurring thirst to hydrate his body.
Right, yep, I think I'm done, 'cause God created people to get thirsty, and that's kind of the crux of it. Why would he do such a thing? Or why wasn't he able to not do that? There's so many questions that leads to that have no answer, or at least no answer that makes even a lick of sense. And we all know how Ray feels about licks. They is for sacks. Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel Spoonstar Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the